So a little update on the 76 Jeep J10. I wanted to show you guys what I've done the last like 2 or 3 days. I think I've done quite a bit. Well, I have done quite a bit, and it's getting really close. As a matter of fact, I think I'm done now as far as what I can do with the bed off. I just need to put the bed on, mark a few things, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So in the last few videos, you guys know that I showed you how I lined up the cross members with each other, or the floor supports, and how I got it all marked and measured properly so the body lines are all lined up now. The only problem is this body line has actually, it's close enough, you know what I mean? I actually took a tad too much off of the bracket that I was showing you guys, or the little bar that I made. So this bed on this corner sits a little bit lower than the body pinstriping. You barely notice it. You have to like really look at it in order to see. But what actually changed that were, if you guys notice, I put these coilover shocks on the Jeep. And the reason why is because the original shocks down here, they are done. They're probably like 20 plus years old, and they just have no shock in them anymore. You squish them and they just stay there. And on top of that, the leaf spring on this side is actually really bad. The two leaf springs in the front are actually not sagged at all. They're pretty straight. They have a little bit of an arch on them. And the leaf spring on this side actually has a decent arch on it. It's not flat at all, or there's no problems with the springs. But if you look on this thing, you can actually see, do you see how the springs are separating? It's actually rusted in between the springs, and it actually has separated the leaf springs. So when anytime when rust gets between metal, it actually starts to expand and it actually pushes the metal apart. So now that leaf spring on this side is actually sagging down, and the fourth spring is actually broken in the front. It's missing, so it only has the rear of the fourth. So this leaf spring has to be replaced, and you should do the leaf springs in pairs. So I need to do both of the leaf springs back here. So for now, I put on these coilover load assistant shocks that I had on my Grand Wagoneer. When I first got the Grand Wagoneer, the leaf springs were like upside down, inverted. They were sagging horribly. The Jeep was like 3 inches lower than what it should have been. And I put these things on there in order to help that, because at the time I have never done leaf springs before. And to be honest, living in a townhouse with no garage or anything like that, it was really intimidating working on extremely rusty leaf springs. With no like real tools other than like electric tools and stuff, you know what I mean? So, but I managed to do it, and I also have to drop the gas tank on that side, so that's part of the reason why I got those shocks to begin with. So they were on the Wagoneer for maybe a year or two before I did the leaf springs, but I took them off because I didn't need them anymore, and I also put an add-a-leaf in the springs. So with the add-a-leaf and the shock, it was just way too stiff and way too bounce. You could feel everything on the road. And on top of that, after my lift that I did, my 2-inch lift and 3 inches in the rear, the shocks were already stretched at their limit, so I had to get longer shocks. But these shocks fit perfectly, and it's actually really helpful because this Jeep was actually really crooked before. It was like leaning over here. I almost wondered if it was the frame that was bent or whatever, but I actually checked the center caps up to the wheel well, and this side was sitting at 19 inches, this side was sitting at 20 inches, so this side has definitely sagged. After I put these in here, the driver's side now sits at 20 inches, and the passenger side now sits at 20 1/4. So this side is only 1/4 of an inch higher than that side now. So this shock is definitely helping that basically blown up leaf spring. So anyway, so that's what I did. The other thing I noticed, which is really odd, is the brake line right here is really stretched. I mean, it's like at its limit. It has no play anymore, and I'm not sure why. There is no lift on this Jeep, at least none that I know of. And I know the rear is sitting higher than the front. The front is like 17, 18 inches, and the rear is at 20, so the rear is definitely like 3 inches higher than the front. But most pickup trucks are higher in the rear than the front anyway. But I'm not really sure if there's... I don't know the reason why that brake line is stretched. I know somebody replaced these brake lines. These stainless steel brake lines are all brand new right here, the metal lines. The guy just never secured them, which they need to be secured because they just wiggle around. But that rubber brake line is at its limit. That's interesting. I'm not sure why. So I might have to replace that rubber line with like a braided line or something like that, because that has no give at all. So I don't know why it's like that. But anyway, who knows? Maybe the Jeep does have a lift. Maybe it's because the bed is off of it and it's lost so much weight from all the steel that the Jeep is just sitting so high now that that it's actually like stretched out the brake line. So maybe once it gets weight in there, it'll like drop down, and I don't know, but it seems weird. But anyway, I painted the cross members for the floors with the rust reformer. A, because I kind of wanted everything to match the same color. B, because the cross members have been scratched. The green paint that was on them, or the signposts that was on them, was rubbed off from when they were stacked on top of each other, and from when I messed with it, it just rubbed off the paint, and I noticed it was starting to get a little bit of a surface rust on there, so I painted those. And like I said I was going to do in a previous video, I bolted them in. I didn't weld them in, so that means this bed can actually be unbolted and removed. The original bolts over here, I replaced them. I cut them out. I put new ones in. And this cross member is actually welded in, but this cross member sits on this one. So when you unbolt this, it'll just all come off in one piece. And what I did to make it easier to get these things off, excuse me, is I actually welded the nuts to the cross member. So all I have to do is go down there, undo one bolt, and the bed comes off. You know what I mean? What Jeep originally did was they actually drilled holes. There were like 4 or 6 holes or whatever in the bed, and you had to have like one guy with a socket wrench on top, one guy in the bottom to get, to unbolt them with the nuts or whatever. That's kind of annoying, but unfortunately I'm going to have to do that with just one cross member. So I'm going to put the bed on here now. I haven't drilled the holes in these yet, and the reason why is because I don't know exactly where this cross member right here is going to sit on that thing. So I need to put this on, line it up, and go down there and mark it with a pen or a Sharpie so I know where it is, or scratch it at least, or something like that, so I know where I need to drill. And then I need to take the bed off and drill the hole through. But the other problem is, well, maybe I can leave the bed on, but the other problem is there's no way to put a nut inside of this thing. So I'm actually going to have to take a hole saw, and somebody tried to take the spot welds out of here, and I can actually use this as a reference point to where to drill in the center of that cross member. And I'm going to bolt the cross member, so there is going to be like a cap right here, and I can pop off the cap and go to town with it. But so that's the only ones that are going to have to be capped and unbolted from the top. I guess I could probably weld the nuts inside of that cross member and then tack weld the hole that I drilled, back on, and then grind it down flush. I guess I could probably do that. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I've done so far. So I'm like this close to finishing this, at least with the bed on top. And then of course I need to weld the bed to the cross members. And I don't know if I mentioned this in a prior video, but I cut off the bottom rust down here. And yeah, like I said, it's getting there. And for the 4 corners, the 4 open corners, because all these trucks from back then, they all had 4 like open corners, and they just had like a flat piece of steel here, or like a corrugated piece of steel, like welded to it or something like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces right here, and I'm actually going to cut the sections out that I need and put those in the 4 corners. So basically I'm going to use this steel for that. Any steel I have left over I will use for welding the sidewall to the floor, but I'm probably going to have to go to the store and buy multiple pieces of 16 gauge steel, kind of like these 2 pieces right here. and use these for welding the bed walls to the floor. The problem is the Lowe's where I live, they have not stocked their steel. They have not stocked their grade 8 bolts in the last year. So their steel has been empty. The drawers where their bolts are have been empty. It's very, very frustrating. And I'm not trying to rant and extend the video any longer than it is, but they keep telling me that they have like this automated system. Nobody does inventory in the store now, so it's all automatic. And I'm like, well, clearly that doesn't work because you have crap missing, your shelves are empty, and I've been waiting for over a year now for stuff to come back in stock, and it just won't come back in stock. So I guess I have to go to other stores or order it online or something, but it's kind of frustrating because those plates over there are not long enough. At that length, I have to weld 1, 2, 3, 4, you know what I mean? So I just need long pieces of 16 gauge steel. So anyway, I think that's all. Another thing is, I don't want to go down there and show you guys, but the U-bolt right here has actually rusted. The axle tube is actually rusted, pitted pretty badly on the side of the U-bolt, only one side of the U-bolt, but for some reason the driver's side is really badly rusted. And that U-bolt's kind of lost about, or the tube there has lost about 1/8 of an inch in steel or iron. I'm not sure which it is, but it's lost quite a bit of metal. And from what I've dug up, this axle tube, I think it's a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch thick. I think it's a 1/4 of an inch. So 1/8 is not that much. That's plenty of steel left over, but I need to find out if it actually is steel, because if it is, I will just fill those holes in, weld it, you know, slowly so it doesn't get too hot, and then just grind it down. I've done that before on a friend's car, but damn, I mean, look at that brake line. I don't remember it being stretched out like that. That is so odd. It is really stretched, isn't it? Anyway, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for watching. I guess that's it. I'll show you guys. The next video will be the bed on, and it should be welded up, and then I just need to start working on the walls. And if you're wondering what I'm going to be doing with this cross member, I will rebuild this thing. So now that I have cut out these old bolts and I did all this so it's easy to unbolt this thing, I can just unbolt this thing, jack it up like a few feet, maybe 1 foot in the air, cut off the cross member, and I'm going to remake my own cross member. I don't feel like doing it right now, and to be honest, it doesn't need it right now. So, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next video. This thing is looking great, isn't it? All that fresh paint, all the rust gone. I'm loving it. Thank you.